Peace, family. Y'all know who it is. It's Bakari Lumumba, back once again, the progenitor of LumumbaSpeaks.com, a Black empowerment initiative where we believe we could gain a competitive advantage by always betting on Black. Uh, Today's live is a rather somber one, as many of you may have noticed. I haven't had a live in a while. Semester started, teaching classes, been very busy. So I do apologize for that to all the friends and well-wishers and subscribers. However, uh, today's live is a rather somber one. Many of you know that we tend to speak about some political issues, educational issues, academic, and some intellectually rigorous and robust conversations. But today's conversation is a rather somber one, as many of you are aware of what took place in Memphis, Tennessee, and has come to light in the community, and of course not only in America but throughout the world, regarding what took place with Brother Tyre Nichols. So we're going to be asking about a provocative question once again: is this a systemic issue, or is this simply a case of thugs in the field? We know that oftentimes, if law enforcement tends to actually agree that what took place was egregious in nature, oftentimes the belief that is echoed, or what is the sentiment that is echoed by many law enforcement officers, is that this was an issue of simply thugs in the field who, of course, were not representing the values of course, the department that they worked for. So definitely want to get people's views on this. I'm actually going to tap in and see if I can get another brother to actually be part of this conversation. But I really think, and this brother is a law enforcement official himself, so definitely want to see if we can do that. But this is an issue that I think is extremely egregious in nature, but really nothing new. We know that when we talk about anti-Black racism, this is something that takes place, unfortunately, on a regular basis. In the Black community, many people have made a number of, I think, rather arguments that are improper or incorrect regarding why this takes place. I watched the video. It's rather troubling, as many of you may be aware. The video lasted for over an hour. So I'm not going to replay the video. I think many of us become desensitized to the violence. I think many of us even find ourselves in a situation in which, when viewing these type of videos, it becomes almost like porn in a manner, and some have articulated. So don't want that to take place, but we really want to look at this issue of this: is this a systemic issue, or is this really an issue of simply thugs in the field? Of course, I will provide my thoughts, and then we could get into the conversation. Those of you who are just logging in, the link is in the description, as well as I'm going to put the link in the chat, but the link is in the description. And so, but I want to make sure we go over some of the ground rules here at Lumumba Speaks. First and foremost, we accept the diversity of thought. I was on another brother's platform earlier today. Diversity of thought is welcome, but as you all know, I do not allow anyone to make any patently false statements. Also don't allow anyone to make claims that will oftentimes put people in a precarious situation. So if someone says something like, well, Black men to go out and pick up arms and just start shooting, I'm going to get you out of here, because we're not advocating for Black people to be nonsensical in nature. So just want to make sure I put that out there. But we do believe in diversity of thought. No racial epithets of any kind can be used to practice. So irrespective of one's geographical location, or even a political frame of reference or ideology or worldview, we do not allow that. Then, of course, as you all know, facts over feelings is very important here at Lumumba Speaks. So we want to promote facts over feelings. And then last but not least, what you ought to know, that our mission is to exonerate or vilify, but to challenge conventional wisdom and re-examine what has been accepted as fact. We know oftentimes in these type of situations, many argue that the media sensationalizes, unfortunately, incidents where Black men have died, Black people, have died at the hands of police. We know that even some come in, and I would even call them agent provocateurs, where they kind of use some rather extremely colorful examples that are more than likely not going to happen to, of course, represent why we must take drastic action. Do want to say my well wishes, positive energy goes out to Brother Nichols' family. I think it's extremely unfortunate that someone will lose a family member in such a manner. It's difficult to lose a family member in any way, shape, or form, but let alone at the hands of law enforcement. As I said before, I watched the video. We had some people tap in, that we can have a conversation. But the question we're going to be asking this evening is this a systemic issue, or is this an issue of thugs in the field, right? I would argue that it's a systemic issue. Many people will oftentimes, when we talk about Black people being the victims of extrajudicial violence in America, the belief oftentimes is that unfortunately this is just it's individual white police officers, so on and so forth. But of course, these are 5 Black police officers, and I believe that as a result of that, this should show that it's more so the institution of policing rather than the individuals that are doing the policing. We also know that there have been a number of Hollywood films that promotes police officers having to engage in roughhouse tactics, really breaking the law, going over the edge, right, in order to secure justice, right? A good example of that would be the Clint Eastwood movie Dirty Harry, right, in which it basically paints a narrative as if that the law is protecting criminals, right? We all know about the Batman as the vigilante, right? The police aren't able to adequately do their job, so he has to put on a mask and go out and beat prisoners to a pulp to of course, secure the city and protect the city. So there's a number of issues that we can look at and really try to unpack. But more so, I think what's truly troubling is some of the reaction from the Black community. I've seen some people say, well, the individuals involved, the officers, they must not have been FBA or African Americans, right? Which is nonsensical. We should be having care and concern for that brother's family. Of course, he lost his life, and it's extremely painful time for them. I've even seen some arguments rather that maybe if he engaged differently with the officers. I watched the video, and as I stated, I couldn't watch the whole thing, but I could see that he was extremely afraid, very afraid. Not in a natural reaction is when someone's kicking you or punching you is to cover up, right? Right. So and then even the language of the officers and how they were treating him and what they were saying to him, it's rather unbecoming to say the least. We have seen a situation in which the police union in Memphis has thrown them under the bus. And oftentimes this is what we see when the video is so egregious that there's no way to explain away the behavior. Then what we tend to find is they will throw the officers on the bus and try to make the argument this is simply thugs in the field, right? Rather than a systemic issue that is top down. As someone who did 6 years in the military, I can dare say I know that these issues are systemic and top down in nature. I can even call a conversation I had and with the former president of the Association of Black Police in my hometown, Dayton, Ohio, who shared that he was told by his superiors that if he ended this whole idea of having a Black police association, he would get further in his career. So we understand that the criminal justice system is systemically inherently racist at every level, local, state, and federal. But we also know that even inside the police departments, these issues take place, right? That oftentimes Black officers are written up for incidents in which they actually didn't do. I know there was an officer once who shared with me that he was arresting an individual, and the young man ended up running away while he was arresting him. And he was able to track the young man down and arrest him, but he still had a record in his file that he had a prisoner who escaped, which of course was not the case whatsoever. So definitely want to have a robust conversation, really solutions oriented. Even though I don't know how much could be done, right, in the situation of this young man that would have saved his life, right? He was beaten, hospitalized, and he succumbed to his injuries 3 days later. So we're going to open things up. The link is in the chat. The link is also in the description. We'd love for some brothers and sisters to tap in, and we're going to have a conversation, a rather somber conversation, but one that we hope is proactive and healthy regarding what took place in Memphis. What we're looking at, is this a systemic issue of extrajudicial violence, or was a situation, an unfortunate incident that took place, the murder that took place of Brother Nichols in Memphis, an issue of thugs in the field. So the link is in the chat, brothers and sisters. Definitely want you all to tap in and just have a conversation. Once again, as I said before, this is unfortunate, extremely unfortunate. But with that being said, I still think we need to come together as we always do and discuss this issue. Particularly, there were some who talked about the fact that he was crying for his mother. I think we even saw the same thing with George Floyd. So we can even open things up and have a conversation. Why are Black men crying for their mothers? Grown Black men, 40, 50, 30, 20 years old. Many would argue that this highlights the pivotal role and central role that the Black woman has in the family, and of course the strong bond and relationship she has with her children, particularly her sons. Others would argue that this is a sign of weakness. at some point, young men are supposed to break away from their mother, we would argue maybe proverbial umbilical cord, and step out on their own and not seek the guidance or protection of their mothers when they are grown men. So that's a conversation we can have as well. We can have a conversation regarding should part of rites of passage training encompass how to respond to police, right? I've seen a number of situations where Black men have engaged in some behavior that was rather peculiar, to say the least, and I would even argue feminine in nature in terms of being belligerent, right? So definitely want to have some brothers and sisters tap in, be part of the conversation. As I said, I know this is probably my first live in about 3 weeks, been very busy. And this is about a somber life. Typically, we have some energetic conversations, some intellectually provocative conversations, stimulating conversations. But this is an issue that I think we really need to touch base on and really find some common footing regarding what we're dealing with. And if we agree that this is a systemic issue, or if it is an issue of thugs in the field, how do we combat that, right? So I definitely will look forward to hearing what brothers and sisters have to say. Because as I stated before, I was on a different platform, and we had a rather, I think, a healthy conversation. There was one individual who was not able to engage in some, I would say, sensible dialogue. But for the most part, everyone was able to understand and really draw on some different opinions and so on and so forth. So, Brother Wisdom never sleeps. How you doing, brother? Appreciate you tapping in.
I'm always great. I'm always great. As they were saying, or Philip was saying earlier, soon to be Dr. Lumumba.
Yes, sir.
That'll be the second Dr. Lumumba around, right?
Yes, sir.
On different continents. Yeah, we did have a conversation that my thing about when you find men crying out for their mothers, usually there's no relationship with a father anyway.
Yes, sir.
And they'll reach out for mother, auntie, whoever that group of ladies that he was raised around for, and a lot of times there's a couple of generations involved.
Right.
And so because most men that are men having problems, they say, "Where's my dad? Go get my dad."
This is true. My son was that way. Anytime there was a problem, he would say, "I need to talk to my daddy."
Right. My son's the same way, and so you find that a lot. That when they're calling for mama, that's all they know, and they've been taught to call for mom. This is a training situation. This is the way your upbringing is. It's the philosophy you're taught.
Okay.
Never cut the umbilical cord in those situations. So when you find them 25, 35, 45, whatever's doing that, is because the mothers never allowed them to be mentored by men anywhere else.
Right.
Because when you have them, that even if your father was there, if there's a male role model takes over, they'll reach out to that male.
Right.
It's just the nature of men to reach out to men.
This is true.
In crisis or direction.
Yes, I do the same myself. When there's a situation going on, I'll take a step back and I'll call some brothers. Typically, they're older than me as well, who are seasoned, have more experience, they've seen more. And I say, hey, this is what's going on. How do you think I should move?
Right. And usually you're going to find the ones that do not respond to you emotionally. They want the details. You may, even if you're emotional when you call them because of the situation, they might tell you, okay, now tell me really what happened.
Right.
Tell me what you felt happened. Tell me what happened.
Facts.
So there's a difference. Because when you're talking to me while you're in your feelings, then you're not giving me the full. Because what was your responsibility? What did you do that may have caused to bring the wrong attention to yourself? Right. What steps you could have taken, maybe a little different. Now, regardless of sometime, you can just be walking along by yourself and some crazy person just gonna do what they do anyway. So we know this. Now, yes, this is a systemic issue. Because if you got black men that are the target, you also have black men and women who are the hunters of the prey. They have been put out front to do the work of the ones that don't need to hide the hand. So it's easier because you're getting recognized to do that. And when you have a system of the white dominant society of police officers that have seemingly either gotten away with it or gotten light sentences, it was just a matter of time before you get a group of brothers on the force, or sisters for that matter, to go off on another black man because of the systemic, the brotherhood in the police force. And so you will find that, but at the same time, you will find the retribution for our police officers are quick and swift, and they distance themselves from them quicker than they would the others, you see. And so, and my understanding is the group of officers, most of them was 30 and under. So like I was saying earlier, they still have a lot of drama issues, mama issues, and other issues going on, but they have a badge and a gun and a billy club, as we like to say.
Right.
And it, they get triggered on anything and they just unleash, like they have seen their other brotherhood from another motherhood do.
Right.
And so it gives them carte blanche to say, let's just unleash. Right. Because the way I understand it was done, you have to really still be in forethought to do a lot of the damage they did to him consistently.
Yeah, it lasted for about an hour. So
wow. Yeah. I just don't look at anything. Some people can tell me something. I don't need to see videos.
Right.
Unless it's something I need to study for a reason. Most of the violence that I see, I really have this, I don't know why my gut just turns when I see any violence to us in any way.
Right.
The fight scenes all the time. People jumping each other in the wall.
Right. So let me ask you this question. Because you mentioned not cutting the umbilical cord, seeing a situation where black men are calling out for their mothers. I would believe that that's problematic. I would make the presumption that you believe that's problematic as well. But many would argue, and once again, I'm going to just play white devil's advocate very quickly, right? They would argue that, well, this is taking place because black men are stepping up and being fathers. What would you say to such an argument?
You cannot make the mother who has custody of the child, you cannot make her allow you to be a father. You can do all you can. If they staunchly want to have control over that child's mindset and upbringing and keep them under their skirt tail, if you will, they would do all they can to make sure that happens. You could just be money. You could just be a little time. So it's not so much. Yeah, there's some guys that you have to look at it this way. When men are looking at the women to sleep with them, they're only thinking of the sexual pleasure. Never thinking out about kids or anything like that in most cases. So when you have a female, like I always say, she's in control whether she has birth or not. Because other than when in the 70s and 60s, you got birth control, contraceptives, IUDs, you got after the morning, you got all these things. So you can wear protection and take protection as a female. So you don't have to, even if you allow a man to be bare skinned, you still protected.
Right.
We have to stop just saying, we know the sexual nature of a man when he's out there to pray and prowl. If you allow him in with just skin, he's going in with just skin.
Yes, sir. Okay?
Unless he himself. And I still want most men to say, look, if I'm not ready for what may come, I'm going to protect myself.
Right.
Don't be caught in this aha moment, a quick moment, and you're not prepped when you go out.
Right.
You should always be prepared with the rain jacket coat. Never allow a female to hand you a condom, because 10 times out of 10, she done the needle hole in it.
So poke the hole in it.
Anyway. Yeah.
I told my son the same thing.
Yeah. I have 4 boys. I tell them, don't let never. I don't care what she had. But the thing is, there are men that can step up, but they can only go so far. Why? Because the other systemic court child support system and the rulings of visitation and all this stuff also is against that as well. So you have to have that relationship built properly enough to be in that child's life, especially the male children. And even if you can in the beginning, by the time they're 3 to 5 years old, because in our old culture, by the time they was 5, they were sent off to be raised by the men anyway. They only come home to eat and get bathed and stuff like that. But they was out all day with the men learning. We've gotten away from that.
True.
And so,
very true.
Yeah, by the time they're really seeing the male role models is by the time if those have become athletic enough, they're in middle school, a lot of times, little JV stuff.
And if I could, oftentimes, even in those environments, the men who are the coaches, they act like they're teenagers.
Right.
So it's not like they're actually growing and developing as a man, because they're playing a child's game.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's an issue. I had a conversation with a brother this morning who, of course, he played a big time D1 football in the ACC, Atlantic Coast Conference, and he talked about that. He said, I didn't actually develop as a man, so I got out and started working an actual job.
Right. And see, a lot of these coaches are younger and younger anyway. They have the rec coaches, they have the Pop One and all these things, AAU. All these guys are younger and younger and younger. And I have a few nephews that got themselves creating teams and stuff. I said, oh, that's good, guys, but y'all still have so many issues yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to they can feel your energy even no matter what you're doing on the field.
Right.
You can snap it any moment, which y'all do. So it's the same as kids raising kids.
Yes, yeah.
And on top of that, the single coaches are after the single moms of a lot of those kids.
I've seen that as well. Yes, I've seen that as well.
You cannot really mentor the guy when you're trying to sleep with his mom.
No. Matter of fact,
the moms sometimes throw themselves out at them to try to get free rides, or they take care of the kids longer and all this stuff too.
Matter of fact, I've mentored a couple young men, and I let them know going in, if I'm going to mentor you, I want nothing to do with your mother.
Right.
I don't want to see her, talk to her, nothing. Because to me, it's being disingenuous with the child.
It is.
Right? If I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there for the kid, the mentor, the nurture, to help develop skills that allow them to have, hopefully give them a competitive advantage in society. I'm not going to be, the fox in the hen house.
Right.
And I'm acting like I care about you, but the minute those conjugal relations stop, I'm no longer there, right? So I don't play those games. Very, very quickly, we got a comment in the chat. Brother Mark Milner says, if what the man is saying is true, and I presume he was referring to you, Brother Wisdom Never Sleeps, about Black police officers, why don't they recognize that about the institution? Or if they do, how do you think they feel? So, Brother Milner, I hope you could tap in. The link is in the chat, and you can, unpack what you mean by that. But Wisdom Never Sleeps, I'm going to let you answer the question.
What happens is this. When like I said, I had an uncle when I was younger that was on the police force. We had actually 2 of them. And they always say, yes, a brotherhood, but you also have to know your hood. Or that neighborhood at that time, not hood.
Right.
And the thing about it is, if there was something going wrong back then, see, you had a period where everybody was slave catchers, police officers, and they were still carrying over to Jim Crow. But then you had a cycle of those that weeded those out a little bit. It was quieting down, and you had black ones coming in. And so you that actually found out that helped the neighborhood better and relationships better race-wise, to have people look like themselves patrolling because they could have conversations. They knew who they were. Just like white people know their people.
Right.
The institutionalism of it is most people, even now, we don't even know our neighbors that well. So how can you expect Black police officers to walk the beat to know you, even if they're in your neighborhood?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So there's a mentality have grown right now. Like I said, the Black man is a target from everywhere, even Black women a lot of times.
Right.
So I'm not surprised that this happened. Most people have forgotten that Rodney King, one of those officers, was Black too.
Oh, what? Great point. So I was a kid at the time, but great point.
Yeah, one of those officers was Black. They didn't push it out there as much, but yeah, he was there too, involved. Mm-hmm. There was another issue. I forgot there's been a few of these things that Black officers have been there and then stopped the white officers at all.
Okay.
But they try to keep them off camera, but some of the cameras caught them as standby, allowing it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So whether or not and that makes them complicit. So if they don't value their own life, they can't value the life of another Black person either. So when they say when you're the title like thug mentality, like I said earlier, is you see that in the neighborhoods, in the street, in the community, this violence against one another. And so to see it from police officers that have no real seasoning, they come from those environments.
Right. So very quickly, rain falling sound states, and rain falling sounds, you're gonna need to tap in and speak on this. 2 Black men helped kill Emmett Till, but y'all don't talk about that. So we need to talk about this. Definitely tap in, and we're gonna have that conversation. Love Ash has never heard that before. Shout out to send the 619, by the way, the 937. Once again, Michelle, if you can turn your camera on while you're off screen so I can see this, make sure that you're not trolling. But also, Sister Carrie says, I found the video atrocious. Brother Ty didn't deserve to be beaten to death. I would agree. Definitely tap in. You're watching, of course, Lumumba Speaks. Hit the thumbs up and the like button. Share, hit the notification bell as well. We're having a conversation regarding the unfortunate murder of Brother Nichols. And so I'm going to say this. We saw a situation similar to this a couple of years ago in Baltimore. Brother Freddie Gray. He was a miscreant. However, the attorney, the state attorney for Baltimore, it was a sister. She charged those officers. Many of them were Black, some were white, but many of them were Black. However, she wasn't able to get a conviction. Do you think that would take place in this instance?
Because it's only one race, I'm sure they'll get a conviction.
Got you.
Got it? Because I remember, when all this started with police stuff, it was a Black cop arrested a white lady, and the way she was talking to him, he had to get a little more physical to subdue her. He lost his job right away. He didn't beat her up, didn't kill her, nothing like that, but he was actually trying to protect himself the way she was acting, but they thought he was a little bit too aggressive with the white lady. He lost his job immediately. So because there's no white officers involved, there's still going to be Black men off the street if you catch what I'm saying.
I got you.
So if an officer can also be moved out of the way, 4 or 5 of them, guess what? That means there can be some white ones replacing them.
To replace them, yeah, that's a great point. That is a great point.
So either way, to get us out of the way, no matter what position we are in life, they will try to move us. And in this case, I would not be surprised with a conviction.
All right, so Negus Afro Dandal states, I salute the Black cops. They did the right thing. Ty ran from police. If you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes, even in Nigeria, not only Eritrea. So, Brother Negus, we're going to need you to tap in. The link is in the chat, brother or sister, but we're going to need you to tap in and unpack what you're saying here, because running from the police isn't a license to be killed by the police. There's nowhere in the revised code where that states if you flee from police that you should be killed. Right.
But you see how easy it is, Brother Moon, I'm not trying to cut you off, but you see how easy it is for us, even based on that name. I can tell he's of African descent of some way. It is so easy for us to carry the narrative that they want carried versus laying blame where it needs to be. Just running from the police have never gotten white people killed just to run, unless it was just they committed a crime heinously or shot at the police and they won't stop and they go get them.
Right.
But just for traffic stops, things like that, they be knife wielding and a lot of things. Do some of them get killed? Oh yeah. Do they report it? Oh no. But the ones you see, they calm them down, they stand off. Sometimes they get hurt by the people.
Right.
But to use that language to say they've done the right thing, in other words, you're condoning murder.
State-sanctioned murder. Yeah.
And so what you're telling me when you say that, it's easy for you to go out and murder a Black person and say you done the right thing just because they stepped on your shoe.
Yeah. I think that's a great point. Yeah, I would never say something like that. Now, like it's like you said before.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Even if the person said, "Excuse me, I didn't see you," you gonna kill him because he stepped on your shoe. And that person is that type of person with that mindset, with that statement.
Right. And this is extremely unfortunate, right? No sensible person would advocate Black people to what? Break the law, not follow lawful orders. No one would advocate anything like that, right? I would dare say that no one watching the channel would actually provide cover or protection for someone who's a criminal. We know 90% of the time when individuals in our community are engaged in criminal activity, the victims of those crimes are other Black people, right? But to advocate and say that this person should have been killed for simply fleeing or running. I mean, I watched the video. I didn't watch all of it. It's very difficult. I didn't want to like get caught up in that. Right. But you could tell the dude was scared. Like you could tell he was scared. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Rosewood, where the blacksmith, right before they hung him, like the way he was like, oh, pleased and scared and everything. That's how the brother was acting, literally verbatim. Right. And so you could tell he was afraid. He was terrified, I would dare say. But to be killed, I thought that is absolutely nonsensical. So, Brother Niggas, you're still here. You're in the chat. I need you to tap in, brother or sister, and share your perspective. Just unpack what you're stating, right? You're stating that he should have taken a beating and sued like I did in Denmark when police beat me up. Brother or sister, we want you to tap in and be part of this conversation. The link is in the chat. The link is also in the description. We really need to unpack what you're saying. But see, so here's the problem now, because now you're making claims that are, and this is what tends to happen. Whenever a Black person is a victim of extrajudicial violence, they all of a sudden they start what? Speculating that, well, he probably was on drugs. He had a gun in the car. He probably had THC or cocaine in his blood. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to get you up out of here because I don't allow people to come on my platform and make claims that are patently false.
In other words, you're trying to give a pass for the murder of a Black man because you hate yourself and us too. My thing is this: had he got shot in the leg to bring him down, tased, while he got close enough, and his leg was bleeding or broken or something, I could say, okay, he was running, they had to subdue him, he would stop. The cops are not in his physical condition like they used to be, so they'll shoot you before they run after you. So if you had to take his leg, okay, you can almost justify, hey, he was getting away so fast, we just took him down in the leg. Mm-hmm. But to catch him and still beat him like that you can't say that. And then you say, well, he probably had. Right. That sounds like mainstream media to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Your brainwashing so good that you come out the gate with that. And so now you're saying, if they beat me like that and kill me, y'all, it was my fault because I ran and I had some cocaine or THC. So that's what, if something happens to him, we can say that because
we could just pull something out of thin air.
Yeah.
And this is what we tend to find with mainstream media. Throw something out, throw everything at the wall, and if something sticks, cool.
Right. But it also shows you that Black lives don't matter in the context because it's Black on Black still, even with officers involved. Mm-hmm. So you hear nothing from the Black Lives Matter millionaires. You hear nothing from them pushing the narrative.
That is a great point. A great point. I know Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, he talks about how Black men's deaths are typically, for most activists nowadays, political currency. Mm-hmm. Right? They just use it as currency. They make talking points. Right? I had a conversation. So, as you know, I'm a professor of African American history. And so we're in class. We're talking about, of course, the criminal justice system, the history of the criminal justice system. This is rather ironic because I actually showed the movie Rosewood in class yesterday. Mm-hmm. Right? And so one of the things the student talked about was he took issue with Black Lives Matter, the organization. And he's like, well, I don't understand why they haven't been prosecuted because they solicited funds under false pretenses.
Correct.
I said, I would agree with you. But as we know, unfortunately, women in the society, you could dare say all women in society, even if they are Black, are treated by the society with kid gloves. But we know we're public enemy number one. And
dare they be already part of the LGBTQ on top of that, oh God forbid they go after them. Oh no, that's not going to work.
Right.
The other thing too is when you see people don't stand, they're listen to this. That's where I was going. They're talking more about DeSantis saying no to the African American studies in the curriculum because they was talking about black queer studies and black communists. They sliding agendas, political agendas in something, but they know that'll trigger the emotions when someone rejected because they'll keep talking about how racist he is, but yet they're not talking about this.
Right. Right. Now, what I will say is this is someone who, of course, teaches in Black studies that from an academic standpoint, you have to cover all the information. So you may not agree with it, but as an academic, if I'm teaching African American history, that has to be included. Doesn't mean I agree, doesn't mean I'm going to try to have the students agree, but part of being an academic is that you cover all the information, you provide all the information, and you allow the students to develop their own sense of self-authorship in terms of what values they, of course, ascribe to.
Well, the way it's written up, when you bullet point something, you always hide it in the Black way because we're emotionally triggered to everything. So it was not that you cover lifestyles and all this stuff. That stuff is they know that's what they don't want taught to the children, that agenda stuff. So they're sliding it in through the behind Black people. If you notice, every new character that was the first gay scene of all these last few movies, that was the Black partner with the white person.
Well, I've noticed this because a friend of mine, she has a daughter. And her daughter was about close to the same age as my son. So coming of age from, of course, being a big kid to an adolescent, they were into the Disney TV shows. So the sister told me that her daughter didn't watch any of the Disney shows anymore. I said, well, why not? She said all of the Black characters were gay.
See?
And I was like, really? She said, yeah. She said, so, and it was to the point of, we know there are Black people who are gay, no problem. But the way that they're promoting it isn't congruent with their actual numbers in the community.
Yeah. So what they're doing is this. They putting Black people in a situation where you cannot speak if you're more conservative or don't like something to be taught to your children. So they put you in a conundrum that way. So if you speak out, then something you're homophobic, and that's what's known for in the Black community. Wherefore, that's not even true. The Black community, just like some African countries, they don't like openly things and you forcing things and you wide open. They don't care what you do in the privacy of your home.
Right. This is very
That's
true.
where it was when you come up in those days. Most people knew there was somebody in the family doing whatever. Yeah. But they weren't just all out here trying to promote something, trying to make people receive them.
And tell people, and telling people that you have to accept this and not only accept it, but what's the term that they use? What's the term that's oftentimes used? Not only accept the identity, but substantiate your identity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But
validate.
See, this is my thing is this. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. As an educator, soon to be doctor. Think about this, if you will. How is it that a person can have multiple personality disorder, have several different people, 2 or 3 different people, and they say they have a psychological? But now you want to be a they, you want to be a them, you want to be a those instead of who you are, even though you know what your sexual preferences are. But that's not mental, some type of mental disorder.
I've made the same analysis, right? I was in class once and I stated, well, what's the difference between a Black person wanting to be white and a man wanting to be a woman? And I said, to me, it sounds like self-hatred. No, you can't say that. I said, fine. But I said, sometimes we have to have those uncomfortable conversations. Yes. And instead of having a safe space, we have to have a brave space. I say Black power, right? And I said, so because, for example, and then we're going to get back to the topic, but I understand why we're going here, but we're going to bring it back in line. Yeah. But I knew a young sister who, she was very pretty in the face, but she was overweight and had low self-esteem. And she ended up marrying a woman, right? She ended up getting a divorce. And shout out to brother Sent Police Academy. I know you're going to be tapping in soon, brother. And what ended up taking place was I was like, well, why are you getting a divorce? She says, because I'm not gay. I simply did this because I had low self-esteem. I thought I was be by myself.
Correct.
So we see that there are a lot of situations in which people are turning to this type of community for
companionship
situations that have nothing to do with sexuality.
Right, right, right. Because some of them so lonely, and they've never seemed to have been loved. And since someone brings something that may feel like they're getting the love they need, they'll go along with it for a while till they build their self-esteem up.
Yeah, I mean, a great example would be in the movie Higher Learning, where the white girl was raped at the frat party or whatever, and then she ended up being she confided in one of the older sisters, white women on campus, who actually was a feminist, turned out to be a lesbian, and the feminist lesbian woman was grooming her.
Yeah.
And then the one sister, the black sister, who she's played in a lot of movies, she's a great actress, was like, hey, what the hell is going on here? And she had to snap her out of it. I've literally, in my academic career, have seen that type of thing take place. Where you have a young lady with so low self-esteem, like she's probably average looking, but she could probably be an adjustable 6 if she work with herself, right? Hit the gym, do her hair and everything, right? She's not getting the attention from guys. Shorty came in, started grooming her. Next thing you know, I think I'm bi.
Right. And it happens
I've seen that happen.
Yeah. Most people don't have friendships anymore, so they take on these so-called relationships because they can't even have solid friendships.
True.
To help them out. And that's just a fact, because most true friendships going to be honest with you at all times.
Yeah, I know mine are. My friends, male and female, they don't tell me what I want to hear. They tell me the truth.
Right. And that's why a lot of people don't want true friends anymore, because they don't want to be told when they're out of pocket, out of line. But my thing is that going back to, we have gotten, as a culture of people, I always try to speak on the collective, not just individual people, because it don't always go everybody. But as a collective people, the systemic brainwashing time over time on every area, the foods, everything they've done has been working tremendously great, to the point where we can't even defend each other even in words. We still got to fight and stuff. We can't at least come to one accord. We already know what the officers did. To the extent they did, it was totally wrong, and they should all hold the court, as far as I'm concerned. At the same time, is we don't give them a pass because he was black, and that's what a lot of them do. They'll find a reason because someone else has already started the conversation, the narrative, I call it, and they just pick up on it because it makes them feel approved to that culture of people. Absolutely. And then they don't feel as black when they speak that narrative like that.
Right. So Brother Milner says, Chancellor Williams said in his book, Destruction of Black Civilization, that if black people don't unite as one people, that we will not survive on the planet Earth. Any truth to that statement? What are your thoughts? Brother Milner, I'm gonna need you to tap in. Sent Police, I just put the link in the chat, brother. So hope you could tap in, because we definitely need someone out here who's Sent Police. They're making Sent Police Academy. We need an entire academy of brothers to make sure that brothers are being actual men, and of course not simps.
Yeah, we're our own self-destruction, and it's not so much just uniting. It's like people argue. This is the thing, when they argue about Black history and all this stuff. How much Black history are you teaching at home?
Right.
Why jump on the Ron DeSantis bandwagon, the February Black History Month, when you don't do it at home?
Don't do it at home.
You still want the system to do something that we don't do at home.
Right. The African proverb states what? The ruin of a nation that begins in what? The homes of its people. Not the rec center, not the corner store, not the block, not the recreation center, right? Not the school. The ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people.
Right. And a lot of times we didn't have no history month and no Black studies and stuff all the time, but look how stuff was passed down for those that taught it at home.
Facts.
And so we don't want to be responsible for our own knowledge of who we are, researching who we are, get to know who we are, and say that in the home, because nobody have to teach you anything other than like-minded people, and your neighbors are your same people. That's something you may have missed. So if your kids are playing with somebody else's kids, they should be having the same kind of conversations, or they've had the teachings from their parents. So we don't want the responsibility to save ourselves. We still want the people who have put system in place for years to keep us where we are, we still thinking they're going to allow you to get anywhere close or above them? Are you serious?
Well, see, here's the thing, and in my opinion, and this is no disrespect to the sister, but I think that's a feminine mentality. I discussed this with my class yesterday. That yes, we understand that there are systemic barriers. We understand that we've been on a system of social control that has transformed over the generations, from chattel enslavement to sharecropping, the black codes, the convict leasing, the Jim Crow, and now the new Jim Crow, right? But I said, with that being said, what we tend to find is that we keep turning and looking for the same individuals who create the problem to solve the problem. I said, that's nonsensical.
Yes. That's what
I'm saying.
People, listen to this. People got mad at me once when they was talking about all these people come along hijacking off civil rights, and now you got this bill, this, that. I said, well, no, they're not wrong. What are you talking about? We started everything. No. We didn't go for human rights. Civil means law. They're just looking for laws that will help them be part of the system, or don't get treated as bad within the system that's set up. That's what civil means. So civil rights, we just had to get laws or break through some of the laws, change the law that was on the books that was really preventing us from really living fuller as we thought we were supposed to be. But what would happen was, in order to be part of the civil on them, you had to leave everything you had. Even though you was really in better shape separate, you just had some laws that didn't work for you. So we didn't go for the human rights, the humanity. We went for the laws.
Right. And that's something that Malcolm X always was promoting, was human rights. And of course, we know that Dr. King, toward the end of his life, was fighting for human rights, not civil rights. I know Dr. Claude Anderson always would say, who the hell is civil, right?
But
so who the hell is civil?
I always tell people, if you go to court, it's going to be a civil matter, or it's going to be a criminal matter if it's not in family, right?
Right.
So civil just means the laws that you have to go by. Like somebody trespassing, it's a law, goes to civil court. Now, if you shoot them, or they damage your property, then it goes to criminal because they've done a crime.
Facts.
But other than that, it's just civil. So when they fought for civil rights, they said, okay, we can give you some laws, we can change some laws, but this is what you have to do as well. You say, you have to, you want a better school, then you come to our school, but you have to give up your school. You have to give up your teachers. You had a lot of black male
and the biggest thing was we had to give up black male principals.
That's what I'm talking about. Because everywhere I worked, that's what we had when I come along. It was
and part of the issue was, and this is something I really pushed back when Kamala Harris stated that she benefited from the integration of schools. The issue, in my opinion, the issue was the funding. Right. There was disproportionate funding. We could have kept the black school. We just need equal funding, because what we were getting taxation without representation. So if anyone should have had a Tea Party movement, it should have been black folk.
Now come on under the human rights, treating humanity, not civil.
Because literally under Jim Crow, we had situations where black people were paying taxes, but they received no municipal services. There weren't any paved roads, no sidewalks, trash pickup. Indoor water services, none, but they're paying taxes.
Because you had no ownership of those systems, no ownership whatsoever. And so they get to come along the way they want to when they're ready for it. Right. And so you got laws now, okay, you live here, you're paying taxes. The law say, okay, we must go do something with this road.
Right.
But that's a law.
And so very quickly before we bring it back, and then we're going to have some more people tap in, be part of the conversation. So one of the core tenets of critical race theory is interest convergence. Wanted to know, are you familiar with interest convergence?
Not totally, no.
Okay, so interest convergence, it posits that whenever white folk engage in so-called racial justice initiatives, they do it in a manner to where on its face, it looks like it's going to help black people or other people of color, but in the long run, it actually benefits them.
Oh, that's what they call it. Okay.
Yeah, and David Bell gives a number of examples. Affirmative action is one. Integration of of collegiate sports is another, where all these black players athletes stop going to HBCUs, started going to historically white institutions, who benefited financially.
Right. Yeah, they
Right.
do.
So the 14th Amendment, right? So he gives all of these examples of that. Once again, when the individuals who create the problem are then pegged to solve the problem, at the end of the day, benefits them.
Right, right. Now you consider the lunch counter. What does that do? They just get your money at the counter versus at the back door.
Right.
And it allows more of you to go in. That's all that
right.
does.
So yeah. Matter of
That's
fact,
all
that's why Dr. Amos Wilson, and let me bring this up here, and I think every Black person should have this book. He argues that in some ways, not in all ways, not wholly and completely, but in some ways, the civil rights movement, the book is Blueprint for Black Power by Dr. Amos Wilson. He argues that the civil rights movement was a consumers' rights movement, in which he argues that for many Black people, they equated first-class citizenship with the ability to spend their money in white department stores.
And that's why it's deeply rooted to this day.
And we see that to this day, where Black people, they believe that they've made it if they can now purchase high-end European goods.
Right. And that's why they have the problem with capitalism as a Black collective, because they're the ones capitalized on, even for some of their own shysters, because they're staying consumer mindset versus ownership, building, and business, and being on the global market and being self-sufficient. That's one part of the capitalistic mindset is, let me go get mine. Who can I make my consumer over and over again? And because Black people collectively are still a consumer mindset, that's why a lot of them you will hear talk bad about capitalism or business owners and things, growth like that. And that's the bad side. Now, if they flip that mindset, it'll be a great thing. But you all have to be looking for ownership for stuff. But going back to
very quick, Sister Michelle, I just need you to turn your camera on very quickly to make sure you're not someone who's trolling. Brother Milner, once again, tap in. St. Police Academy, want you to tap in once again, brother. Make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. Hit that notification bell. Go right ahead, brother.
Yeah, so we just have to be mindful that when something comes out, take a step back, look at all the facts of things, and speak to the facts, not to what it made us feel like a lot of times, because we're going to always have a bad feeling about something that we see. But at the same time, how many times have we promoted things like this that causes them to think it's okay to treat us like that?
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? They know how many of these fight videos that we send around, somebody getting beat up, jumped on, whatever, gang style or not, all the women now being more masculine than men, jumping and beating up people, breaking windows, and stomping people in the head. It's almost like we're saying it's okay because we don't check one another either.
Right.
And so now we have the police force. That's why, like I said, the guy that was standing on George Floyd, he's smiling the whole time.
Right.
Because it's like, what are you going to do? Nobody's going to ever run up and knock us off. Nobody's going to run out. Most people just keep the cameras going now because they need that recognition to put something on their page. So we're not, having cameras out there is fine, but what are we doing to resolve the issue? When somebody going to break it up? They wait till somebody almost beat to death before they go try to pull somebody off. And it's kind of a tough situation for us to be in. But the thing about it is, let's say they convict these cops, as they should. The only thing will it truly send a message, or will Black people now be, some of the narrative talkers be mad because, well, you didn't do the white cops like that. Why are you throwing away our Black people? They thought they Black. Then it'll become another racial fight.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? It could become a whole other racial dynamic if they all get convicted when a lot of the white ones don't or did not. So you got a whole other dynamic after that happens.
So what you're saying is they will have a problem with justice.
They have a problem with who the justice fell on, with the same situation that the other ones had for years and consistently, and it didn't happen.
Right. Okay. Very quickly.
Black Lives Matter might just show up.
But Brother Milner says, I respectfully disagree. Capitalism has to go. He's referring to Eric Williams, the Trinidadian barrister, former professor of history at Howard University. and the first, of course, Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. He's citing his book, Capitalism and Slavery. Brother Milner, we need you to tap in and be part of the conversation. I would love for you to explain why you disagree, respectfully disagree, in regards to the brother's comments regarding capitalism. So tap in, brother, tap in, tap in, tap in. The link is in the chat. The link is in the description. I want you to come on and share your perspective of why you are opposed to capitalism in the Black community. And of course, what would be the economic, what form of economic development would you promote? So please tap in, brother. Go right ahead.
And the thing about capitalism, it just means to capitalize. Like racism, the ism was put on. There was a race between people, the white to the black. Really, what it really was about, and then other races is to own and control all the resources and land and anything else you can more than anybody other race. We never got into race, and so they put the racism as trying to make it for a color thing, but it's always about owning and controlling resources.
Okay. Well, so I would disagree a bit there. When we look at racism, we're talking about adversely affecting a group of people in some area of what? Human activity, right? So it's one thing to compete. It's another thing to what? To what? Politically disenfranchise, economically exploit, socially marginalize, and even what? Brutalize another group of people. So right. I think we're looking at a different definition of what race is, or racism, and I of course focus on anti-Black racism as well. So, but Mark Milner says socialism is the economic form that he would promote because capitalism is based on the private ownership of a means of production. The concern I tend to have is when people say socialism is we've never seen socialism work on a scale.
Never.
And where it's actually developed a robust, wealthy, industrialized nation.
Right. It always has fallen because of you. It turns into something else every time. You know, the mindset of most people are not going to. Socialism never works for those that's been in capitalism for a long time anyway. So you or those that are conquerors by nature.
Right.
They just
or individuals that have the ability to be entrepreneurial. Yes. Like no one wants to then take what they made and share it with someone else.
Exactly. That's the handout of socialism. It's like your son go out and he's the one win, but everybody else get a trophy because they participate.
So we have seen that, for example, Cuba, they have a communist political system, socialist economic system. We do know that from a communist standpoint, they have some great social services in terms of healthcare. One of the queen mothers, one of my mothers, from an ideological standpoint, was in Cuba. They had their appendix rupture. They was able to have emergency surgery, didn't have to pay a dime, right? However, we do know that many of the premier athletes in Cuba, particularly in baseball and boxing, right, they flee because they say, hey, I have world-class ability, but I'm being paid the same as everyone else.
Right. So you don't need socialism to have free health care. You see what I'm saying? You need humanism to
right, and the thing is, I always tell people that if you believe in that type of thing, America, I mean, the fact we have free lunch, the fact that you have Medicare and Medicaid, right. So you don't have to have socialism to have government. The government provides certain goods and services for citizens for free.
Yeah, because
the fact that we have what is it called? What is the food stamps called now? EBT.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If you go to other developing nations, they ain't got no EBT.
Right.
You just SOL.
Everybody don't get them. Everybody don't qualify. I mean, the socialism, everybody can get them. Well, not necessarily. My point is, you have you need a little bit of both things there. You don't want to hold back the real entrepreneurs, the real people that's going out here developing, learning, and inventing. But you also need, for a certain part of your people, some safety nets to help them still maintain a good, decent life. whether it's healthcare, whether it's food, whatever it is. There's some of that social programs need to be in place for not always everybody, because everybody don't need.
Don't need it. Yeah, everybody doesn't need it.
But for those that do, yes, it needs to be there.
Right. So he says that if you do not control the means of production, you are not a capitalist. What do you say to that?
Means of production, you're not a capitalist.
If you do not control the means of production, you are not a capitalist.
I always say, well, they looking at the capitalism as the owners, that top 1%, 3%, 5%, or whatever. But I think Dr. Lumumba can say I'm a capitalist because I go out and build my own wealth, and I capitalize by products, by teaching, by whatever I do, whatever avenue I get. Just like you talk about the athletes from Cuba, they leave because they want more. And so in their little mindset, they're just capitalizing on what they can do greater. Now, if you don't own production, you don't own anything, you don't control production, you're already at a deficit anyway in a system that's going to pretty much control what you do or think, because you don't have ownership in anything. But you also don't have a way out because you're not entrepreneurial. You didn't insulate yourself with finances, life insurance, all these other things, trust accounts and things like that they do anyway. The system says this is what's allowed. You don't become the business owner because then you don't do the tax code for the business. You just stay on the one for the employee, the W-2. So you may not own, well, it's like this. During the demic, China was producing pretty much everything, the basis of the medicine and stuff. So America didn't own the production of a lot of the stuff. Were they still not capitalists by nature? A lot of production, I'm even to clear the production. I always say if you don't own a lot and control a lot, but the production of stuff, a lot of that stuff it's been always out to other countries right now, mostly China. So they're producing pretty much. So they're the one controlling more anything, that's why we was limited on what we had at the beginning, what we could get.
So I'm going to bring the conversation back.
Yes.
I'm going to bring the conversation back to, of course, the issue that we were discussing. And so the question now is, and we've heard people say that a lot of times, and this wasn't the case with Brother Nichols, but that we see oftentimes a Black man behaving in a belligerent manner when they interact with police. Some argue that, hey, white people are able to do that. We should be able to do it as well. Some even make the argument that they're simply emulating their mothers, that many Black women are belligerent when they're seeking to solve a problem, and that this is Black men emulating their mothers. What do you say to those two talking points?
Well, when you say because they do it, then you're trying to take the responsibility for how you act away from your responsibility. Just because someone can do it with their privilege, or as they call it, that don't mean you can just do that. Your goal is, like I said early on, is get home alive, live to fight another day. Now, if you're belligerent like that, if you're raised in a single household with an emotional mother who reacts to everything loudly and stuff like that, you take on that nature. That's the feminization. Not so much you become gay, you just have those characteristics.
Right.
And before you know it, you're reacting the same way they react to you at the house when something happens. And so, or if you question them, they're gonna go off on you. Well, I'm your mother. Why you gotta talk to me? You don't question me. I did this and I do that. So when you out here, or the police officer, or you did something at school, the mom come down and cuss out the teacher, or they cuss out the coach. You always got that. So now when you get out here to a person of authority like the police officer, who could be a real race soldier.
Yeah, very true. Yes.
And you quickly.
I'm glad that you acknowledge that.
Yeah, he could be a true race soldier because they've infiltrated.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be one that looks like you, but he's also married on that side. So that, you know what I'm saying? So he has to show that he's not really for his people to stay included on that side. And then first thing you do when they say license registration, what you put me over for? What did you do that for? What do you mean? I ain't done that. I know you start the process to put them in a situation where they're going to say, look, I'm going to teach you. So you can't be your emotional mother self. You could always do that in court. You make it through. Because it don't take but a little bit for the race soldier to go ahead and wipe you out or take you down or make your life miserable for a moment. Even if it don't take your life.
Right.
The beating they can give you or the charges they can try to rack up. The planting of stuff they can do to make the charges even further.
Right.
You're opening the door by your first response.
Right.
Because of the mentality of that person, you're already their target anyway.
Right.
You just another notch on their belt.
Right. And we know we got some sisters in the chat. Hope y'all can tap in, be part of the conversation. So Brother Milner is going back. He says ownership is not African culture. There was no concept in African culture called ownership. I would disagree. Mansa Musa, of course, controlled the gold fields in the Mali Empire. The second issue was that culture is fluid. It's not static. So we live in a world in which ownership is important. Ownership is necessary. We know when we look at many African nations, they have independence on paper, but they don't control or own the industries in their countries, right? So that may not be in a concept in the Middle Age, during the Middle Ages, but it's something that we must practice now, right? So we have to evolve. We have to engage in what Dr. Milana Klinger calls adaptive vitality, the ability to adjust to changing circumstances without losing one's substance or essence.
Right. So we have, like I said, we have to be mindful out here anymore. We have to have more conversations about this.
Yes.
Not so much.
Just real quick, brother, if I could, we didn't control hip hop.
No.
And look what happened.
Exactly.
Right. So irrespective of what we did in the Middle Ages, we need to be doing that crap now because we live in a world in which ownership is necessary.
And when we gave up ownership in the R&B field, it's all sexual now. There's no real love song. So hip hop and all that is all gone.
Matter of fact, I remember I had a conversation with my students and I let them know that when before hip hop turned into rap, and hip hop became rap when it was commercialized and seen as a commodity that could be sold to white middle America, right? The imagery of black people that white people would be comfortable with, over sexualized gangsterism. I just got on a parole. I got 6 baby mamas and I ain't never going back, right? That type of crap. But when we look at when hip hop is seen as a fad, similar to disco, but different, when hip hop is looked at as a fad, as a musical genre that would not have staying power, as a musical genre that you would not be able to make money on, the imagery of black men and black women in hip hop were much different than what we see in rap, right? Black men promoted community development, they valued education, they were African centered. Black women promoted being respected. We are women, we are cultured, etc., etc. Now, what does KRS want? We're talking about Knowledge reigns supreme coming from the boogie down Bronx state, right? He stated that rappers spit rhymes that are mostly illegal and MCs spit rhymes that uplift their people.
Right.
Right? So you know what I'm talking about when we talk about big old black tech, big old black 9, I clap your monkey ass, black on black crime. We're talking about you too light, I shoot your freckles out. You're too dark, the infrared show you what the tech about. So it's important that we understand that we live in the 21st century and that we must practice ownership.
Right. And another thing on that hip hop scene, most people say, well, they're rapping about what's their normal life, and most of them are rapping a lie because they don't live that life. They're just being able to rap. It's just like a good actor can go out and do a series for years, and you equate that person to think that's who they really are, and that may not be, but they're a good actor. So a good rapper can go out here if they say, hey, he or she has the look. They got the speed of rap. They can make it happen. Here's the lyrics, and they'll go out here and do that, become that person, and still not that person. Then they do it too long and get enough notoriety. Then they try to live that person.
Right, and it's called A&R, artist and repertoire. They're the person who is responsible for developing the artist persona. Yeah. And a good example is when we go back, if we jump in the proverbial hot tub time machine and go back 23 years to the year 2000, the lead singer of the group, the Black Eyed Peas, was a black woman. She was Afrocentric. She had a neo soul sound and look. The record label told her they wanted her to make some sexualized music and to dress in a manner that was more sexualized. She refused. They told her, you're not black enough. The record label told her this, and they replaced her with Fergie.
Most people don't.
This isn't hyperbole. This isn't conjecture. This is something that is actually taking place. So ownership is important, irrespective if it's part of African culture or not. I would dare say, based on the history that I've read, that that's not the case. It may not have been practiced in the manner in which it was practiced by European nation states, right? But what we do know is that ownership was practiced, in particular, the individual who was the head of state was the one who controlled what we would argue were those national industries.
And why most people didn't think there was a lot of ownership back then is because then the people that did own did also take care of their people, the villages and things like that. And what, that's what they're probably thinking about, because they didn't have a lot of separate poverty, if you will.
Right.
Everybody kind of took care of everybody, but there was still ownership.
Right. So, and we're going to bring this back full circle. The unfortunate murder of Brother Nichols in the Memphis, Tennessee. Shout out to Orange Mound. I know I got a brother that's down in Orange Mound. Is this a systemic issue, or is this simply an issue of thugs in the field? We do know that the narrative coming out from the Memphis police, the police union, the FOP, is that these were thugs in the field.
Well, let me
agree with that.
It's let me put it this way. How can I put it? It's systemic enough to produce the KKK that's in the field, as well as now the thugs in the field. Okay. So the system has created that.
Okay.
So it's, you know what I'm saying? So they can say that because the system that they're in, where the black cops have seen enough, been part enough, stand by enough, that now they can go out and do the thugging together. It's rare that you see 5 black cops together, men.
That's true.
That's why they can say thugs in the field, but they won't ever say the KKK is in the field. You see what I'm saying? The race soldier. So the system, the systemic system, the way it's set up, has been able to allow both to be in the field. The race soldier, white race soldier, the KKK, and now the thug group. Is due to the system.
Right. Okay. If you're watching, make sure you hit thumbs up, hit the subscribe and like button. Brother Wade Hodges, hope you could tap in and be part of the conversation. Naturally Shy, come on, sister. I'm always pushing you to be part of the combo. Need you to tap in as well. Sister Love Ash, want you to tap in as well. And Brother Simp Police Academy, once you finish driving, I hope you're not working, want you to tap in as well. So, of course, we're having a conversation regarding the unfortunate, untimely, unjust murder of Brother Nichols in Memphis, Tennessee. We're asking the question, is this a systemic issue? Was it simply an issue of thugs in the field? I would argue the former rather than the latter. We do know that, unfortunately, Black people have been struggling and suffering from extrajudicial violence since, of course, we came here many years ago. I was on another platform where a brother made an eloquent argument that this was a result of us having connections with the African continent. I disagreed. I made the argument that as an African person, as Sister Soldier said over 30 years ago, if you are African, you will be hunted, and that we're looking at anti-Black racism. So irrespective of one's nationality, national identity, we even know that other Black officers, when they're off duty, they're oftentimes being assaulted and harassed by their colleagues.
Yes.
Right. So I don't think this is an issue at all of us having to have international connections. We're talking about, of course, simply anti-Black racism. Wade Hodges says system has something to do with it. You are that way because you want to be. You are a grown man. So tap in, brother. Need you to come in, tap in, and elaborate on what you mean by that. I'm gonna put the link right below your right before your comment. Get you to tap in. Of course, you'll be able to unpack what you mean by that.
Well, a lot of times we say we have to blame the system. What we say is something systemic. What I say is because of the years of the way it's going and doing, it has allowed this so-called grown men and women to act the way they want to act and think there's no repercussion. So even though you might say, that's just like saying your upbringing, your household had nothing to do with what you did out there. You're a grown man or woman. but then you go back and say, well, I was raised that way. You can't have it both. So you had a system in your household, your upbringing, your neighborhood, your street, whatever it was, that it caused you that either you will be part of it, react a certain way, or after a while you will change and grow beyond that. But if you stay within that same household, you can react the same way because that's the philosophy of your upbringing. So you can't always get away. If you're in a system that allows you to act a certain way all the time, you can carry that no matter how old you get.
Understood. So
yeah,
yeah,
they have choices and options. Yes, they do. So yeah, but like I said, it's the system, the way it was designed, and what's been going on in the last several years that allows that person as a grown man to make a decision thinking the system he's in will allow him to do that and maybe get away with it.
understood. Yeah, I mean, and I can understand both sides. I know even myself when I was in the military, there were certain activities and behaviors that I just wouldn't engage in. I can say that when you are out in the field, particularly in theater in another country. So Hodges says, admit it, you are not a man, and I'll make my own choices. Nobody for me. So, Brother Hodges, we need you to tap in, be part of the conversation. Please tap in, be part of the conversation. That way we can really understand the gist of what you're saying and what you mean. So, but oftentimes I make this argument with the police and even in the military, and I can say this because I'm a veteran, is that it's almost like being in a gang. So when you are in a gang, part of your initiation may be, okay, you have to fight, but part of your initiation is you have to engage in criminal activity to show that you're not an officer and that they can trust you. Am I right or wrong?
That's right.
We see the same thing in the military and with police. Right? So sometimes, same thing in the military. You hear a situation where, oh, this guy killed 15 unarmed Afghanistani women and children. Well, the reality of the situation is, nah, he wasn't just a thug in the field. He's just the one who got caught. That was almost like an initiation to show that we could trust you.
Right.
And if you don't engage in that behavior, guess what will happen? Fratricide, friendly fire. Oh my God, I didn't have my weapon on safety.
Correct.
So we see these things in the military as well as with the police. And so oftentimes individuals make a conscious decision and say, hey, I want to be part of the brotherhood. And to be part of brotherhood, they engage in these types of actions. We know there was a situation well documented in the Detroit metro area to where you had a number of white police officers from different actually municipalities who they had a pact. They actually had like a pool where they would put money together and bet who could assault the most black men while they were on patrol. This is a real issue.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So this isn't a situation in which, yeah, but I call myself a man and then means something. So yeah, but Hodges, we need you to tap in so we can really understand what you're trying to say. We're not getting it all the way through the messages.
You know, when I hear that a lot, let me say this. I don't question any male's manhood.
Right.
I can't question that. Like I used to tell my sisters, don't even allow yourself to question your boyfriend's manhood because he can snap on you in a minute, or leave you in a minute because you keep playing with his that. So that's why I can't say that's not a man. I can say you may not be acting in an adult male way versus still being an older child. However, there's times when you don't know yourself what you may do in a situation. Now, this situation, like you were talking about military and me being in reserve and me raising young men, there's a lot of things that we know that long as we got cognitive mind and we're not defending ourselves, we won't make that decision as well.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I can't say you're not a man because there's guys that say they're a man and they're out here just robbing, stealing, killing, raping, RN and all this stuff, and they still think they're a man.
Right.
Because they're making their own decisions. So we can't say me and Dr. Muma that may not be men because we have a different view of opinion about what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, like I don't always say women, I say females because because all of them don't act like women. Right. All men, I'll say males because they don't always act like men. There's a difference. You're in your species or what they call you, what your sex. So you can be a male and a female, but not be men and women.
Facts.
In your decision making. So a lot of guys can have 13 baby mamas, and he'll say, "I'm a man. Look at all I did." But for us, if you're not taking care of them, you didn't marry nobody, you didn't plan a family. That's not the real man thing to do. But for him, he's a man because he was able to do that. You make sense. So it's not. I can't keep saying people say, "Well, these people are not a man," or "You're not a man." Nobody can make. Yes, I'm glad you can make logical decisions. That means you're maturing or you have matured and you're still growing. But not everybody that calls himself a man. These are the robbers, the killers, the stealers, the gangbangers, and everybody else. Go up to the gangbanger and tell him he ain't a man and see what they do to you because you're not making the decision he's making.
Right. So, and let's speak to this. So, of course, we were on Brother Dinah's channel, and I'm quite sure Sister Natalie Shy, she was on the channel as well. And so there was a sister that made the argument that black men have to do what Malcolm said by any means necessary. And she even talked about, look at what the white man did when he came here. And of course, we had a rather spirited conversation, right? Where I used some epithets, not racial epithets, though, because I don't like racial epithets. But she actually advocated that black men commit genocide in order to overcome anti-black racism in America. And so this is the question I'm going to share even with those in the chat. Do you think that is a logical solution to combat white hegemony, and that is to commit genocide? That's the question I'm asking.
Well, they're doing a good on their own with all their drugs. Mm-hmm. Their birth rate is down anyway, and they're trying. They turn those things into sicknesses now versus criminality. So they're dying faster than they're being born. So they're committing genocide on themselves through their greed and through their. They didn't think a lot of things they would do would affect them. So they're doing it. But for us to go out and say, let's just start creating genocide. Well, you have a lot of slave revolts that did a lot of things, but still in the end, it didn't get us where we need to go. If you don't plan for your takeover and your power struggle and all this stuff and plan for war, doing some genocide is going to unleash their army anyway. So, but I don't think it's a good mindset in that way to do what she just wants somebody to go out and, put a battery in their back and get some more of us killed. That's really what she's doing. Now, like I said, I can't say that. First, you got to stop genociding your own people. That's first.
Great point.
You will never be able to genocide the other as long as you got people you can genocide in your own race. You don't get the same death penalties and all these things. So as long as you can kill your own, that may get you satisfied with your appetite to do that. But that's first. And she never speak to that. That's first. Right. Before you go genocide another race. But my point is we're not part animal like that. That is not in our nature.
Right. That's not in our DNA.
Right. So for say that just go and start doing that, that means you have really taken on their whole essence. Yeah, you've just taken it all on and you lost all sense of who you are. You never knew who you were and you far you come from.
Yes, matter of fact, we could think of what took place in Ethiopia, the Second Abyssinian Italian War, when Haile Selassie was able to come back in and defeat the Italians. We know Ethiopia was never colonized. They simply were what? What's the term I want to use? They weren't colonized, but they simply were occupied for a particular period of time. And they was like, all right, we came back. We in charge now. We're going to slaughter the Italians. And they said, no, we aren't like them.
Right.
Right. Go home.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it is. So a lot of times, because we are the original, once you take authority of what you're supposed to do, you don't have to kill everybody. Mm-hmm. You don't have to kill everybody. But she's just advocating violence from a level that
was nonsense. Jean-Jacques Dessalines understood, right? And hated. He knew. He was like, we got to get them out of here because we know we can't trust them. They're not going to be willing to live under black rule. So, but once context mattered as well.
Yes. Yes. Yes, exactly. So once you take over, you can always move them out.
Right.
Send them to where they need to go, and so because you can't trust them in that. That's a
And
whole
the
history.
Police says, I think we need about 10 million Africans to come to the U.S. So why do you make the argument that we need brothers and sisters from the continent to come to the U.S.? I hope you can share that.
Different culture mindset, probably. Oh man, I declare. I I can't be with you much longer. I got another call.
No
Actually,
problem. No problem. Appreciate you tapping in, brother.
yeah, so I'm subscribed. So,
I appreciate it.
but yeah, but I'm glad this conversation is being had.
Mm-hmm.
But it also allows you to listen to other people to go, how did they get that out of that?
Yeah.
Where is that thought process coming from? Because of the last show was on, I'm like, huh? What are they talking about? Because that's how we think, huh? Like, how did that come? Where did you get that from? But
here's the thing. A lot of people tend to talk. Look, here's the reality. A lot of people are Jim Lampley, Larry Merchant, right? They're HBO commentators. They simply talk a good fight. And it's easy to do that. It's easy to be bombastic. It's easy to be provocative. It's easy to push the limits in terms of militancy when you're not the one that have to go out and do the actual fighting.
Correct.
Right? As I stated before, being in the military, someone who used to box, I understand. Listen, I'm afraid of no man. Strategy matters.
Correct.
Right, and everything, and we can even say this with America, who has the largest and most powerful military in the world. America, one, never goes to battle by itself. They have what former President Bush, we talking about the second Bush, stupid Bush, would say, a coalition of the willing. And then last but not least, they also made sure if they went to war, they went to war with a nation that they knew they could defeat.
Correct.
You don't see them going head to head with Russia. The only time America actually went head to head with a military superpower, the last time, America went head to head with a military superpower and a military conflict was what? Nazi Germany. And they had to, because Hitler was like, we're going to take over the whole world. Get some. Right. Get down or lay down.
Yeah. And until they said that, they were going to come over here. They let them do what they do.
Yeah, they were like, you can do whatever you want. Just leave us alone. Yeah. But when Hitler said, no, you're going to get this work too. Then it's like, we ain't got no choice.
Right.
And if you want to keep it a buck, right? Because I had to learn the American military history when I was in the service. We would get let me not say we. Let me correct myself, right? America were getting their ass kicked.
Mm-hmm.
But what changed in World War II was, of course, the Battle of Stalingrad, and when the Russians were able to force the Sixth Army to capitulate after one of the most brutal Russian winners on record. That forced the Nazi Germany, Hitler, to have a war on both fronts, the Western Front and the Eastern Front. And then they knew at that point they were fighting a defensive war as opposed to an offensive war that they had been fighting for the first 4 years of the war. Right. So there's a lot that we could get into, but definitely I appreciate you tapping in, but I appreciate you being subscribed. You're always welcome here because, of course, you're coming from a scholarly standpoint, from an elder who's seen more, experienced more, and able to really bring some rational conversation regarding what's taking place in our community. So definitely appreciate you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you too. I've been listening to you a long time on Dynasty, and you guys crack me up when it comes to Georgia and Ohio State. I work so hard with y'all when y'all go there like that. I'm glad I be on mute. And sometimes
no doubt. And listen, Dynasty and I, we watched the game live together.
Right.
But yes, Georgia eked it out. We missed the field goal at the end. But I'm telling you, the whole game, Diners was in the fetal position. Oh my God. Marvin Harrison Jr., they kicking our ass. Oh, I didn't know they was this good. I mean, he was freaking out the entire game. Literally. He was getting up, running off screen. Oh my God, I can't believe. He was. Listen, you would have thought this dude would need to be put in a straitjacket the way he was acting. This is no cap, no lie. He even admitted it on his channel.
I know. Yeah, y'all was just too funny that
night. Even when Georgia scored, he was like, "We still gonna lose because we gave C.J. Stroud too much time. We gave him too much time. They're gonna go right back down and score again." Oh, yeah, he was. Yeah. So the rematch is on. I told him, like Cameron when he was playing the homie in Paid in Full. I said, better back, better 5, better back, better 10. You know what I mean? So we're gonna see what happens next year.
Yeah, we always need some of that light stuff come along, and because some people get so irate, they're so frustrated, or they're angry, and they're pushing. You need some laughter along the way.
Right.
So we need laughter.
Yes.
Every time somebody lose someone, even in 14 months, it was a son, mother, sister, uncle, all that at one time. And people say, "How did you do all that and write funerals and all that stuff?" I said, "Because I think of the laughter."
Mm-hmm. We have to have joy.
Yes. It keeps them alive, because if I believe that we are an energy that never dies, why would I stay in this so-called mourning state when they're living, if that's what I'm supposed to believe? So a lot of times people don't have any laughter, and they take on all this negative stuff in the news all day, on these videos that's bad all day. Find something to laugh at. Mm-hmm. So, and even laugh at yourself if you have to, but that will relieve you a little bit, take some stress off you, and we don't have to be so serious all the time, because we are a fun-loving people.
Yes,
and
we know that we are at war, right?
Yeah.
However, even in warfare, you have R&R.
Some of us know that. Some of us.
We have R&R. At some point during warfare, you have R&R. You get to go to the rear, call your family, do what you need to do, and of course, provide yourself a reprieve from the vicissitudes of battle. So once again, wisdom never sleeps. I appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you, Doc.
No problem. So yeah, so we see the conversation in the chat. Simply, Sister Naturally Shy, you all are discussing the concept and idea of a majority of Africans' dream is to come here. Yes, that is true. Part of it is, of course, the American propaganda that promotes this concept and idea that America is the place to be. But also, I think what part of the reality is we have to understand the nature of the global economy and the way the global economy is set up and has been set up since, of course, the Industrial Revolution. And we know, unfortunately, that the Industrial Revolution was funded by some of the black bodies vis-a-vis the transatlantic slave trade, that the economy is set up to benefit the global north. We also are familiar with the brilliant work of the revolutionary historian and scholar Walter Rodney, where he talks about in his seminal text of how Europe underdeveloped Africa, that the reality is that most African people have to move to the global north once they get a university degree or college degree, so they can actually make the money that their degree is worth. So that's what he calls the brain drain. But definitely want to continue the conversation. Tap in. I'm going to put the link in the chat one more time, and we can finish this out. Probably go about another 30 minutes where we're discussing, is this a systemic issue, or was this thugs and fear? And so the other question we can ask is, what really could be done? Because we're seeing a situation in which this brother, unfortunately, was drugged out of his car, beaten. He was very afraid. And of course, he said he was beaten, and then he succumbed to his injuries, ended up dying. What can be done? I know one of my brothers, Brother Jabril Africa, always states organize. But what do you do when you're an individual motorist and the officers just pull you out the vehicle and start beating on you? You're more than likely unarmed, and if you are armed, it's going to be one gun against 5, as it was in this particular situation, if that would have been what took place or transpired. So the real question is, what can we do, or do we have to resolve ourselves to the fact that there may be times where we're simply in a precarious situation, and we have to just hope that we make it out? So that's the question that I'm asking. The link is in the chat. Hope you all can tap in, share your perspective on what I just asked. And of course, if you want to speak to, of course, the untimely, unfortunate, brutal murder of Brother Nichols in Memphis, Tennessee, you can. So definitely want to hear what you all have to say. So do share. So Sister Naturally Shy, I always push you to tap in. Sister Ash, I always push you to tap in. Brother Milner, want you to tap in as well. Definitely want to get you all start. Sister Carrie, hope you can tap in as well. We still need to do that interview regarding some of the literature that you've written. Actually, you state, of course, you found the video atrocious, and Tyre didn't deserve to be beaten to death. I would definitely agree 100%. It's unfortunate we still have some of our community that think that he deserved to be killed. I think that's nonsensical, but I think it also speaks to the nature of internalized anti-Black racism and the fact that unfortunately many of our community do not value Black bodies the way that we believe we should. I think that we should be staunchly ethnocentric and believe more so in the value of our own lives above anyone else's, right? Because of course charity starts at home, but unfortunately we find that oftentimes not to be the case. I think oftentimes when individuals are making those claims, some may simply be seeking to be contrarian, or maybe even ignorant, right? But I think some, unfortunately, may not have the intellectual ceiling necessary to understand these complex issues. But I think oftentimes these are individuals who are simply trying to ingratiate themselves with not only white people, but the power structure. There is a belief that in somehow being adjacent to white people and whiteness, or even marrying into whiteness, what we like to call escapism, one can escape, of course, the insidious tentacles of anti-Black racism that affect us in all areas of human activity. So once again, I appreciate you, Sister Ash. So tap in, want to have a conversation for about another 20 minutes. Then we'll close things out here on this Saturday evening. Once again, as you all know, this is probably my first live in about 3 weeks. As you all know, the semester started back, and so I'm teaching, have to grade papers, etc., etc. Been very busy. But wanted to make sure I did a live this evening on this subject matter. It's a rather somber live. Typically, we look to have some rather robust and so actually stimulating conversations. But I think this is a situation that really took us out of shock. We've seen a number of situations where Black men and Black women are just killed for rather innocuous things. We know there was a situation in Staten Island where the brother was just selling loose cigarettes and the cops just choke him out. I mean, it's just asinine. And when we look at Black life in America, I think what we have to be honest is that we are always finding ourselves, busy semester, absolutely, sister, in a situation where our lives can be snatched at the hands of law enforcement, right? Because I think anyone, natural disposition, natural reaction, if someone is assaulting you, you're going to defend yourself. You're going to make some type of defensive movements. And what we tend to find is, even in the case of George Floyd, where I don't want to really bring back some negative thoughts about that, but I mean, the guy just had his foot on his neck for just 8-9 minutes, his knee on his neck for 8 or 9 minutes. And then we even saw many of the Black conservative community trying to say, no, that wasn't the cause of death. He had fentanyl in the system, even though the coroner's office showed that no, his cause of death wasn't asphyxiation, right? Due to pressure being put on him by the officer. So, but we do see this inhumane treatment of Black people, right? Irrespective of their complying or not. You know, you're arrested, you have to sit in the car for maybe an hour while they're out just shooting the breeze before they actually take you to jail, where you can, of course, relieve yourself, make a phone call, let your loved ones know where you are, so on and so forth. So I always tell people, I believe 100% that we do live in a police state. And I think we need to be cognizant of that we live in a police state, right? I am a legal firearm owner, right? I legally own firearms, but I always tell people we have to be responsible in the way we handle our firearms. And I just think overall, and I'm not someone who's advocating respectability politics, but I really think that we need to be cognizant of how we move, right? Irrespective of where we are, not only in America, but throughout the world, because as we know, our Queen Mother, Sister Soldier taught us over 30 years ago, or nearly 30 years ago, the reality of the situation, if you are African, you will be hunted in this world. So with that being said, if no one taps in, I'm going to close out, but I really think we could have about another 20-minute conversation just to bring it to the top of the hour. So tap in. The link is in the chat. Definitely want to hear from some brothers and sisters regarding their reactions to what took place in Memphis. And then, of course, what do you think could be done, right? This is a situation where a brother was driving. He was pulled over for whatever the reason is. And then to see the video where he basically was not only dehumanized and also beaten, but I even say mocked, right, for his inability to defend himself and for the fact that he, of course, was extremely afraid, right? We can even also speak to the fact that he was calling for his mother. I don't understand why this tends to be an issue with a lot of Black men who unfortunately are in a situation where they're about to lose their life, but calling on their mother. I don't know why that would be done. I think it's a bit nonsensical. I think it's representative of someone who, of course, hasn't been able to cut that umbilical cord. We also know that for some strange reason, we see a lot of Black women tending to, even want to speak for their sons, even when they're in their 30s, right? We could call Kevin Durant when he, of course, made his move with Golden State, and his mother was on all these talk shows, particularly First Take. And it's just like this makes him look weak when his mother speaks with him. He's a grown ass man, but we know most children aren't willing to tell their mother, "Stop! No, you're doing wrong. You're out of line." Right? That's typically what the father is there for. And many would argue that there's a reason why there's such a large number or percentage of single parent households in the Black community. That's because there are a number of women, and an inordinately large number of women who do not want to ascribe themselves or submit to male leadership. So those are questions. Those are some thoughts I'm putting out there into these YouTube streets. Tap in, be part of the conversation, share what you think, and if not, we're going to close things out. So definitely want to get you all's thoughts on what I shared. I think that what I stated is absolutely true. It's something I've seen in my 30-some years on the planet. I think it's extremely problematic. And if we don't do something about this, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where I personally believe we will begin to implode internally, right? And we're really starting to see that, because the reality situation is we're seeing that this is from I'm going to use a rather biblical reference, but this is the first Joshua generation of African Americans that are not exceeding, of course, the Moses generation in terms of educational attainment, so on and so forth. Sister Ash, from the 649 by way of the 937. What's really good with you, sister?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing quite all right. Thank you for asking. Thank you for caring.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So what are your thoughts?
So one of the main things that I was just thinking about is about those who are for like reform. Like this is something that I think that they would have to really like reevaluate their stance on. Because as far as the system, this just really illustrates that the system is going to do what the system is going to do regardless of who is there. And we would really have to reevaluate the need for diversity. Like, does diversity actually mean that things will change? Or will you be killed off? Like, will you be... It's so many different variables to it. And I think reform is always like a blanket statement.
Right. But so you say the variables. You know, we know you're educated, since you're using some big words here on this, right?
Is it big words?
No, I'm just messing with you. Just messing with you. So when you say variables, what are you referring to?
That people who are for reform, like they're gonna have to reevaluate. Because I always look at it as this, like, when I talk to people who are for reform, they always kind of have like this Trojan horse type of mentality. Like you have to infiltrate the system in order to create change within that system. But if the system is like, quote unquote, this big beast that you don't actually know all the ins and outs of unless you're in it, they could just kill you off, blacklist you. There's so many different ways you could be out of the loop once they know that you know some things and want to change things. You would have to have more of a political, social, economic standing in order to fight the beast, so to speak.
Really? So you think money has something to do with it?
I think it's one of the variables.
So what if I pushed back and said I disagree vehemently?
Okay.
That irrespective of how much money Black people have, irrespective of how much education a Black person has, irrespective of how well one dresses, how articulate one is, we are still considered nothing but you-know-whats.
Oh, no, I didn't mean it in that sense. I mean it as in, like, when you embark on the journey of, like, being a part of law enforcement, to become a lawyer, DA, CIA, those types of systems, and you're there to, okay, you see wrongdoing and you're there to change, right? That's the goal, is to change it for the better. Those specific variables dictate how you can change that system once you're in it. If that makes sense. If I'm making sense. I
Okay.
know what you're saying. I don't mean it in that way. Like,
Okay,
oh,
I got you. Well,
respectability politics.
I would make the argument that the number one variable is anti-Black racism, and that the reality of the situation is that Black people in America, irrespective of how much we are able to enjoy the luxuries of living in a first world nation, we are not citizens in America. We are denizens. We are living in this country by privilege, not by right.
I would agree.
And I think it's unfortunate. And the only thing we can do is try to seek to gain the collective political, economic, and social power. But the reality of the situation, even in doing so, we find ourselves in situations to where we're still going to have individuals who are victims of what a white hegemonic system.
Correct. Like the system is always going to do what it is designed to do, whether you are in it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it has a Black face, an Asian face, no matter what the face is, the system is going to do its job.
This is true.
So I think that's just something that we would have to contend with as far as like diversity and representation and all those different topics.
So let me ask you this. Should we get the HE hockey sticks out of here?
As like, that's just the end all be all?
Get out of here. Marcus Garvey said we would never, over 100 years ago, Marcus Garvey said that Black people would never be treated like human beings in America. We would never be granted full citizenship rights, so that we should get set and abscond to Mother Africa. Malcolm X even said that he believed that the ultimate solution was to return home. But he knew that was not a possibility for over 20-some million African Americans at the time. Do you believe, what say you? Do you think that we should look to Africa, get the hell up out of here, those of us who can?
I think there are pros to it, more pros than cons to it.
Okay. What do you say to people who would say that is fleeing?
Running away from your problems?
Correct.
I would disagree with that only because it will still remain a problem. Like, okay, if we all, like every last one of us just decide to go to Africa, they would want us back. Like they would realize they can't do much. And there will be other issues that would arise from that as well. So I think we would continuously have to fight.
Okay. Because okay. Got you. And we do know anti-Black racism is global in nature. It's omnipresent. Right. It is ubiquitous. So irrespective of where we go in the world, as Sister Soldier said over 30 years ago, or nearly 30 years ago, you will be hunted. About this particular situation, do you think there's anything the brother could have done to prevent his untimely death?
No. I also was thinking too, if I may add, I was also thinking too, like, okay, let's say like he didn't pass away. Mm-hmm. Like how the system would treat him in that regard. Like they would just throw the book at him. And we wouldn't
even more than likely, absolutely, yeah.
You know? So it's just kind of like you always say, oh yeah.
Very quickly, I don't mean to cut you off, but I've seen videos of white officers attacking white people who are handcuffed. The guy's handcuffed and the cop would just come and kick him in the head. I've seen this type of stuff. So once again, it's not sensationalized by the mainstream media, but we see police just doing this damn near to everyone. The difference is they tend to be extremely violent to damn near everyone, but they aren't killing everyone.
Right. And that's also why I wanted to speak on like the system. Like no matter who's involved, the system is designed to do what it's supposed to do, and it's doing it.
And what do you believe the system was designed to do? What is the system supposed to do?
So this system, right, as far as policing, is just a continuation of things from the past. So if we are going to
when you refer to the past, what are you referring to?
I'm referring to slavery.
Chattel enslavement. Okay.
Yes, chattel enslavement. So that's why I said that's kind of something that those who are for reform, I haven't made a decision on where I stand, but like those who are for reform would have to contend with as far as doing the Trojan horse method, like what would be a viable way to get through.
What
If
about
they've
getting rid
already
of
tried it.
what about getting rid of a qualified immunity?
I mean,
And
there's
I
options
actually,
there. I'm not really for it or against it. I mean, there's options there.
how about creating a law? And I actually wrote an op-ed on this. I submitted a letter to my congressman, to the governor, and to my state senator and the president of United States, where I say that we need to create an actual presidential order, an executive order, making the killing of an unarmed citizen a federal crime punishable by, now check this, I stated this in the letter. I said they love mandatory minimums, right? Tough on crime, punishable by 25 years to life.
Nina Turner was for that as well. She was speaking earlier.
Yeah, she's from Cleveland, absolutely. Shout out to the great state of Ohio. Absolutely. So that's what I'm pushing for. I would behoove everyone to please contact your local congressman, state senator, and of course governor, and write a letter, as I did, and letting them know that we need to push for an executive order, and with the killing of any unarmed citizen is a federal crime, punishable by 25 years to life. So yes, but back to what you were saying, you said in the past, you see this as a continuation of what took place in the past during child enslavement.
And I also want to
what are you referring to?
Okay. And I also want to speak on when you were saying oh, I've seen officers attack white people or whatever. I also want to speak on that too, because oftentimes we like to do the comparison thing, and it's not to say that it doesn't happen, but we gotta look at the numbers at a higher rate of what's happening to whom is happening to, like you said, the killing is being done to a specific group. So I don't want to kind of dilute the seriousness of the situation by comparing, but yeah.
Got you. Yeah, and of course it's unfortunate, but this, matter of fact, I say there are certain movies that even promote this type of cowboy mentality with police. Dirty Harry is a good example with Clint Eastwood, where the law, but according to the movie, the law is protecting the criminal, and the police have to go over and above and break the rules in order to bring justice to the community. And of course, we all know about Batman, right? He has to actually go around beating criminals to a pulp at night in order to provide safety and justice to, of course, Gotham. So I think we need to understand that also being defined this form of police, and even being taught from America and even being disseminated throughout the world, that this is the proper way to police people. I know oftentimes, even when I have interactions with the police, they're always, you're a pretty big guy. And I know that that's the language they're using, right? So that if they want to do something physical, they already say, well, he's a big guy, I had to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah, it gives them a reason.
Years ago, when I wasn't someone who was bodied by Lumumba, right? They still would say those type of things.
Yeah, it's the rhetoric and the whole culture of it, and police brutality bonds that they have in place, the anticipation for you to quote unquote screw up at a high rate to conduct a heinous crime. It's just, the whole thing is just a mess.
Absolutely. Queen Candace, appreciate you tapping in. Sister, I hope you could tap in. I'm gonna put the link in the chat right underneath your comment. Need you to tap in and be part of the conversation. As you know, we had quite a colorful situation over there on Brother Dinah's channel. So hopefully you could tap in and share your perspective what we're talking about here regarding the murder, untimely murder, brutal murder with Brother Nichols in Memphis, Tennessee, in which, of course, we're asking the question, was this a systemic issue, or was this an issue of thugs in the field? And if you could, Sister Queen, you said no problem, so appreciate you tapping in, being willing to come on and speak. If you could speak to the conversation that we were having with that, I would dare say, delusional sister, that agent provocateur on Dinah's channel, and why do you think that was taking place, and why, of course, you believe that is someone who is not representative of course, the divine revolutionary femininity of African women. So can't wait for you to be able to tap in. Like I said, the link is in the chat there. And so, of course, my apologies, Sister Ash, you can go right ahead.
Oh, so was that topic, like, were you talking about this earlier?
Yes, we was having a conversation on But a Diners channel, and there was a sister who tapped in, and she was just making some rather irrational claims, just to put it mildly, right? And I actually, I wasn't even being Professor Lamoon, but I was Lamoon. I was back on the block.
You were yourself.
Yeah, I was back on the block, and I basically was like, "B, shut the fuck up. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're on some dumb ish, right?" And basically, the argument she was making was, well, black men need to just pick up arms and just start killing people. I mean, she actually said this, and then she said, well, we need to look at what the white man did when he came to America. And then I said, well, what the white man did was commit genocide. And everyone on the panel agreed, like, yeah, they committed genocide. She's like, well, that's what we got to do. That's what we got to do.
I'm glad you said like that just doesn't make sense, because I just finished a book by Nikki Giovanni.
Shout out to the Queen Mother.
Right. And she was speaking about like it's easy, or she kind of like went back on she kind of recanted on a poem. She said like, oh, it's easy to die for a cause versus to kill for a cause. And she kind of sounded like the woman that you said was nonsensical.
Mm-hmm.
And she just kind of brought herself to the forefront and kind of took accountability and was like, yeah. I don't know what I was talking about. I was 23. Like,
right. And here's the other thing, right, too, is the fact that the sister was being extremely intransigent, right? And what I mean by that is she was unwilling to change her frame of reference, because there were other sisters who were saying, sister, what you're saying is absolutely ridiculous. And she still refused to even be open to another viewpoint or idea. It's just, no, if you're a black man, if you want to prove, like she even gave, Sister Candace, you can speak to this, she even gave a ridiculous, she gave an example that wasn't true of, well, if my man has to perform fellatio on a police officer to save his life, I don't want him coming home with his breath smelling like another man's penis. It was like, well, why are you even coming up with this exaggerated situation that's never even took place?
People be having mental illnesses. Like, y'all cannot be.
Yeah. Sister Candace, you're going to need to unmute yourself. So, yeah, I think she's having some technical difficulties. Okay, there we go. You're going to need to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're just fine.
Oh, okay. Oh, much better, because it was like echoing real bad.
Okay.
That sister, she was all over the place.
Yes.
She looked.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Oh man, it's real delayed. She was like all over the place.
It sounds like there's some background going on. Do you have like the chat? Do you have like a YouTube on in the background, or in the same room, or another room?
You know what? Let me turn my television off. Give me 1 second.
Okay. It sounds like there's some background going on. Do you have like the shot? Do you have like a YouTube on in the background, or in the same room, or another room?
You know what? No, I don't. All right, I turned my television off.
Do you have headphones?
No, I don't. I'll tell you what, let me log off and then I'll come back.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
Go ahead, Sister Ash.
Hold on. Okay, I was going to wait till she hopped out. Dang, I lost my train of thought what I was going to say prior to that.
Yeah, so you were talking about Nikki Giovanni.
Oh, yeah. And how, like, when she was 23, she wrote this poem, like, it's easy to die for your people, but it's harder to kill. Like, are you willing to kill, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And, like, I think they asked her how she felt about it probably, like, 20 years after the fact. So she was, like, in her 40s. And she was like, I have no idea what I was talking about. I think I was just angry, and I just wrote that and just thought it made sense. Like, I wasn't not necessarily educated enough, but she just was like, I wasn't sound enough to even be writing that.
Right. Absolutely.
And it also kind of made me think about, like, when I do go into these rooms and have these topics, I think from now on, I'd rather talk to people that, like, okay, yeah, we may disagree, but have the patience and like the wherewithal to be
Mhm.
open to different kinds of ways of thinking about
Right.
topics versus like people who haven't even like read, people who aren't well read, let me just say that.
Right. Understood. Don't lack the intellectual ceiling to understand that oftentimes the issues that we face as Black people, not only in America but throughout the world, are extremely nuanced, right? And we tend to find that. I know when I unfortunately have some conversations with individuals who are the FBA mindset, you know, oftentimes their positions are rooted in misinformation or false information and anecdotes, right? And I try to share with them actual factual information, historical facts, so on and so forth. There's almost a cult mentality where it doesn't matter, right? And for example, and this is just kind of to divide our time into the wade in the water, as our ancestors used to say, until but Sister Candace could tap back in. But I remember we was having a conversation regarding, and he said that African Americans were the only racial group in America that experienced racism. And I was like, well, that isn't true. So we could look at Native Americans, we could look at Asian Americans with the Chinese Exclusion Act, and how even when they helped build the railroad, and you know they were paid less wages, lived in dilapidated living conditions. And he said, well, so you're caping for another racial group of people. I said, no, I'm not. I'm just stating factual information, right? So we tend to find this lack of ability to be intellectually curious, right? And what it really comes down to is someone being dogmatic, right? So that's not something that we want. We want someone who is able to understand that we're looking at a cornucopia of issues, right? An amalgamation of different issues that, of course, manifests itself as anti-Black racism, but affects us in different ways based on our different identities. Sister Candace, go right ahead. The floor is yours.
I still have the echo again. I don't have anything else on.
Okay, well, we hear you just fine here.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll just deal with the echo on my end.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Let me take my headphones out. Let me see if it worked for me on that side.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, you're calling in from the DMV, is that right?
From DMV? What is that?
The DMV, the DC, Maryland, Virginia.
No, I'm in Texas.
Oh, okay. Shout out to Texas. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in Texas.
My bad, sister. My bad.
Yeah, I'm in Texas. No, what I was saying is that that lady, she was kind of like all over the place. She went from talking about like cutting off our population to genocide. I couldn't take her serious. You know, it really didn't make sense. I don't know if we were just conversating with someone that maybe had I don't want to diagnose anybody. Let me put my disclaimer out there. I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, or a doctor or anything, but I think maybe she's had some issues that kind of maybe brought up something, you know, and you know, I mean, we've all been through stress in this country with our Black men being harassed by the police. Racism does have a lot to do with it. Also, compliance issues with our youth, not wanting to listen from authority to parents. You know, it goes from one extreme to the next. You know, it's people brought up a lot of good points. I don't know really if you can say one person was right, one person was wrong, but that particular person on the panel, she, like I said, she went from one extreme to the other. She just really had my mind going, and I just had to just go along with it and laugh at it because it really didn't make any sense. But for her to say to cut off our population, she's really like giving the man what the man really wants.
And I don't know if you saw that, but she later admitted that she was in a relationship with a non-Black person.
You know what? That's what I thought I heard she say, because I know I was joking because I put out there Scandinavian. So she did say that she was.
Yeah. You know, I was joking. I was like, "How many times have you sold your box to a white man?" You know what I mean? I said, I can tell you straight bad winching it up. You know what I mean? And I'm not even into calling people names. I always say I believe in what? I believe in what? Deconstructing the argument and not attacking the person. And I even told Dynas, I even texted him afterwards, and he was like, "Man, you good? I'm not tripping on what you said or what you did." But the fact that it actually tries to advise Black men to go on these kamikaze missions just so that you could feel a certain way, that's extremely disrespectful. You don't care about Black men.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so that's why I the hood came out of me like, man, shut the bleep up. You know what I mean? You don't really have this conversation because, if you actually care about Black men, you won't be telling them to go on these damn death missions.
Exactly.
So you could feel a certain way.
Absolutely. Exactly. And then you really don't care about Black life, because without Black men, you're not going to have Black life. Just like without a Black woman, you're not going to have Black life. And it's like, well, and if she has a partner that is non-Black, basically what you're saying is a Black man's life is worth less than any other non-Black man's life.
So real quick, Sister Candace, Carla D says, "You're going to take over with nice soft words and marching, shaking my head." No, I'm not saying that. But what I would love for you to do is to tap in, be part of the conversation, and deconstruct and unpack what you actually, this is the lady.
Yes, that's her.
Pull it up. Get the bleep out of Dayton, right? So listen, I'm gonna bring you in here. As long as you don't say anything crazy, right? You can come in here and you can be part of the conversation. So the link is in the chat. Don't come in here on no dumb ish, and you can tap in and be part of the conversation, and you can say your piece for the viewing audience. So we're gonna do that. We're gonna let you tap in, say your piece for the viewing audience, and we're going to take it from there. But this is once again what many people are taking issue with, or taking umbrage with, is no one said anything about nice soft words and marching. No one advocated marching. No one advocated making these grand, eloquent speeches. So once again, it's like, where are you getting this stuff from? Because no one is even saying these things. And I would dare say that it's the curiosities and inventions of your mind that are bringing these things to the forefront. But once again, the link is in the chat. You can tap in, give your perspective. People can hear it from the proverbial horse's mouth, as they say. And then, of course, we can unpack, and then we will call it a night. But all right, the link is in the chat, so it's up to you if you want to tap in, if you want to, give your spiel on what you're saying and what you're thinking. But like I said, I think it's extremely unbecoming when one is trying to have a conversation with Black people, but you don't think enough Black people are going to be in a relationship with a Black person. And so where I come from, we say get the you-know-what out of dating. So sister, speak to that. Sister, as you from the DYT, you know what we say. We say get the bleep out of dating. Take that. Take your ass to Indiana with that bullshit. You know what I'm saying?
We're not gonna jump her. She can come in.
You know what I mean? Because
no. I'm not gonna disrespect her and be arguing and all that.
Right. Because what we say is you gotta have some skin in the game.
I was just about to say, but no, we from Dayton. Like, we ain't gonna jump her. She can go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. We from the city anyway. We go head up. We don't need to jump nobody to get our dub.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Growing up, I never jumped anyone to get me a dub, and I never took an L.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For real. You know what I mean? So I'm you know what I mean? Whether that be intellectually, whether that be physically, but we're not advocating Black on Black violence in any way, shape, or form. I'm talking about in the boxing ring. I used to box.
Right.
Right. But I've retired for about 4 years now, and I'm not getting back in there because I am not as athletic as I used to be. Right? I may be stronger than I used to be, but I'm not as athletic as I used to be.
Right.
So with that being said, Sister Carla, you can tap in, be part of the conversation, you know, and we'll see where it goes. But yeah, but this concept and idea of what I would dare say is engaging in nonsensical revolutionary violence, right? To where, right, and I think, like I said before, when I mentioned on Brother Dinah's channel, is that we've tried this before. The Black Panther Party started off with, we're gonna go eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, right? A bullet for a bullet, a shell casing for a shell casing. And I realize, hey, this is a war, because war is a war of attrition. This is a war of attrition that we are unable to win. And they shifted to what? Focusing on what? Social programs, right? Now they protect themselves, but they said, we can't be going out trying to get into skirmishes with the police. A lot of brothers end up being killed. A lot of brothers end up spending an inordinate amount of times in prison. And so we need to be cognizant of these things, right?
Mhm.
Like I said before, one of the key values or virtues that I live my life by is adaptive vitality, the ability to adjust to changing circumstances without losing one's substance or essence.
And I agree.
Can you mute up?
Yeah, so Sister Candace, if you can mute yourself when you're not talking.
You said for me to, okay.
Yes, ma'am. We'll see if that can stop the yeah, so that's just an issue that we're looking at. So what we're going to do is I'm gonna allow Sister Ash and Sister Candace to give final thoughts, and then we will close out this evening. That's just an issue that we're looking at. So what we're going to do is I'm gonna allow Sister Ash.
You can go first.
Give final thoughts, and then we will close out. Sister Candace.
You can go first.
Oh, you want me to go ahead and go first? Okay. No, I really just my final thought is that we have to come to we have to use common sense when we before we speak. I mean, like on the situation with Miss I believe Miss Carmen was her name. Before we open our mouths, of course, we know that cutting off our population is not the answer. Genocide, definitely, of our own race is not the answer. The topic that the subject Dinah's show is that, we have to learn how to follow rules. We already know that the racism and the biasness exist. We just have to do the right thing. Our men have to do the right thing. Comply. They ask you to give you a license. Give them the license, the registration, the insurance. If they violate you, you can always have that right to report them. It's just better to be alive. And if you have to sue to enjoy that money, then our brothers die, because it's always majority our brothers die, and have your family enjoy that money, and hopefully we don't never have to get to that point where somebody has to enjoy money. People could just go ahead and get that citation, pay that ticket, or get that warning and drive on. I mean, it's just really, it's common sense. I don't know why the confrontation, and with the gentleman, it's just so sad that we had to have 5 of our own brothers beat him up like that. That's really sad. That there is no policy that allows that. And with me, I've medically retired out of Texas Corrections, and we didn't have policies that allowed that. It was, if you had a use of force, it was that when you stop, I'll stop. When that person stopped, you stopped. We didn't have where we just kept on, or you just beat the pulp out of anybody. You know what I'm saying? It's just, it was just as it escalate, then so it went kind of like both ways. Okay, you resist an arrest, you take off and run. Then you have on the other side the authorities, these five big bears gang up on this little bitty, this little cat, and you just holding him and pulverizing him. Now that does send a message out to our youth to kind of make them more frightened. You understand what I'm saying? It makes them more frightened to have to deal with the law while they're, driving, or what we call driving while black. So it kind of goes like both ways. But I hope that our youth and even older people, just when you get pulled over, you don't have to say no, yes sir, and no sir, and yes ma'am, and no ma'am. Just say okay, I got my hands on the steering wheel, whatever. Get what you need out of your purse, out of your glove compartment. You just say what you're doing. Hey, I got my I do. If they ask you if you have a weapon, because in Texas we can carry. We can open carry. So it's like, yes, I do have a weapon. You let them know that. Just, follow the guidelines. Now, as far as our system, when it got toward the end, like I said, we have to be thinking sensible before we open up our mouths, because then you open up a whole can of worms and can't put them back in.
Well, and here's the thing, I think that sister's a troll. Like, she came on my channel, found my channel just to come in the comments. I ended up blocking her, right? So to me, she's just a troll. I think that she is someone she's one of those investors who wants to go around just bashing Black men.
Right, exactly. And we have those, and sometimes there's the regular ones that come on over there to dine. We can have something good going, and there's a good conversation. And because I use the channel just to learn from, because you learn every day. You know, I learned from you. I learned from I think Mr. Philip or Felipe. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce his name.
He's a brilliant brother. He's a brilliant brother.
Yes, I learned a lot of things from you guys.
Is he a lawyer?
Huh?
Is he a lawyer?
I'm thinking so.
Yeah, because the way I think he's a lawyer. Can that brother know the law like the back of his damn hand?
Yes. He's very familiar with the law. But yeah, I get a lot of information because my move is going to be in 3 to 4 years to Africa.
Okay, shout out.
So, but yeah, I get a lot of information. But yeah, you have some intelligent conversation going, and boom, here comes somebody with this black on black, call it black on black crime. You know, even if it's verbal, black on black crime. You know that.
Right in the hood, right? Okay, yes. So sister Natalie Shaw said yes. Brother Philip Lindsay, and yes, he is a lawyer.
Oh, thank you, Miss Mary. Naturally shy.
So very quickly, we're going to close out. Sister Ash, shout out to the 937 by way of the 619. If you could share with us your final thoughts, and we will close things out.
My final thoughts would just be that it doesn't really matter what you do while driving. Like, I think you just got to make the best decision for you in that moment, whatever feels right in that moment to do. I implore you to do. It makes no sense to like try to be the respectable Negro and still die. Like, if it's gonna happen, then it's gonna happen. Like, do what you feel is right. And it's unfortunate that he lost his life. And those are my final thoughts on that.
I will agree. I've been arrested before. I've been detained by police for situations I was innocent of. And I mentioned this on the Dinah show. There's a situation I was arrested back in 2017. And what ended up transpiring is, and I'm going to mute you, Sister Candace, so that we don't get the playback.
Okay.
And 8 officers came in the room. I already knew what it was. So I knew I was going to be arrested. I didn't resist. One, I would have got not following lawful order, resisting arrest. My bond would have been even higher. Got downtown, called my family. They came, posted my bond in like 1 hour. Boom, I'm out of here. Went to trial 6 months later, won the case. Now you can sue for wrongful arrest, unlawful detainment, malicious prosecution, right? And so, once again, part of it just being knowledgeable, right? Because oftentimes, as I said it before, growing up in the proverbial kind of ghetto, the hood, what we tend to find is officers tend to show up on the scene and try to provoke a situation, right? Rather than actually coming and trying to de-escalate. They seek to escalate because they know at any point they could just throw some charges on you and you're sitting in the county jail, right? So I think these are things that we need to be cognizant of as well. So, and like I said, I've been in a situation before. I got pulled over this past Tuesday, and the cop was like, "Man, you were speeding." I was like, "No, I wasn't. I was watching my odometer. I wasn't speeding, speedometer." And he said, "Yeah, you was." So he's like, "License, registration." So I already had it out. I give him my license and my registration. And the officer, this is a highway patrolman, says, "Is this car stolen?" I said, "No, I just handed you my registration." Right? So he's like, "Well, I didn't look at it." I said, "Well, why the hell would I hand you my registration if I'm in a stolen vehicle? What type of sense does that make?" I said, "Just write me the ticket and let's keep it moving." Type of dumbass shit. You know what I mean? So I ain't gonna lie. I kind of went off on dude. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm like, what type of dumbass shit is that? I'm handing you my registration along with my license.
Like, you made the decision for you in the moment, in the space, and it felt right. Like, it just is really nothing you can do. Like, I hate when people are like, just do this, just do that. It's like, it's nothing you can do. So if you're gonna go out how you feel like you need to go out.
Got you. Well, I appreciate everyone. Make sure you hit the like button, thumbs up, subscribe, like, share. We're going to be right back at it tomorrow at 8 p.m. where we're going to be having a conversation, or rather, this will be back. Once again, we'll be having an intellectually stimulating, riveting conversation regarding, does intersectionality help or hurt the Black community, particularly in response to what? Anti-Black racism. Definitely want you all to tap in for that tomorrow, 8 p.m. Be there, be square, where we're going to have a conversation regarding anti-Black racism, intersectionality. Does it help or hurt the Black community? So next time, y'all know what to do. Peace.